He's not unknown to have built what is become the biggest mining corporation on the continent of Africa at the time, but here in Ghana, known to be a business magnate, a man of extraordinary achievements. Today, we'll delve deeper into his life and the decisions he had to make at critical moments in his life from the work perspective. Sir Sam Jonah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Raymond.
I want us to start from the journey at Ashanti Gold. You were in school, you had a family that despised mining, and yet you ended up being a mining engineer. When you had to go and do a full year in the pits, how was the experience?
First of all, the experience was quite humbling. But let me just start off by telling you how I got into business in the first place. I went to arguably the best secondary school in Ghana, at the Sadaf College, of course.
Many would disagree, but anyway.
When I finished the sixth form in 1969, I was restless. I didn't quite know, like most kids my age, we didn't quite know what we wanted to do. But what I did know was that I was anxious that I would pursue a program of study which was not offered here, because I wanted to try and look for opportunities beyond necessary, beyond the more popular areas. As an example, I had studied physics, pure maths, and applied maths at the sixth form level. And the expectation was that you would go and do engineering. There was only one university which was offering degree level programs in Ghana. That was Kumasi University. That's now Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And everybody was going there. And you know, it was going to be fiercely competitive, but there were not too many job opportunities. In fact, most people who had gone there had gone to Valco. Okay. So I decided that I would look for the line of least resistance and do a course which was not offered here. And I chose mining engineering out of quite a few I had looked at. I looked at aeronautical engineering, I looked at agriculture engineering at that time, and mining engineering, and I settled on mining. I didn't know quite I was letting myself in for. I read a little bit about it, even though I was brought up in Obuasi, the mining town. I didn't quite know what the job entails. What I did think was that every expatriate, and it was an expatriate colony, a lot of white people, were all mining engineers. This is what I thought. And I said to myself, these guys are not going to be here forever. They would like to go back to their countries one of these fine days. So I should prepare myself and see that when the opportunities come, I will seize them and then, in a sense, take over what they were doing, yes.
Well, that's an interesting one. Now, you then, when school came back, to continue work at the same place.
Yes.
With a lot of prospects, were you of the opinion, or did you have the hope that you were going to be the one transforming the corporation as it was then and its fortunes?
No, when I joined in 1969, soon after the sixth form, I applied for a scholarship. I applied to Consolidated Diamonds, that is Akotia, and I applied to Ashanti Goldfields, that they are mine at Obuasi. And I attended interviews at both places, and each of the companies offered me a scholarship to go and study abroad. But in the case of Ashanti, having accepted and having then, in a way, rejected the offer from CAS, Ashanti then turned around and said that, well, we've got to test your aptitude for this business. So you've got to demonstrate that you have it, physically and mentally. So you have to work for 1 year underground. And I was disappointed, but I accepted it. And it turned out to be a fantastic experience I had. So that, in a sense, prepared me mentally and physically for the career ahead.
What was your biggest learning from working underground with people that obviously you were more educated than?
Oh, my education didn't come for much certainly the first year, because all I had was my A-levels, and I was working with people who had no formal education, but people who had the skills, which I desperately needed in my work going forward. And so it was very humbling. You had to show respect, you have to show appreciation of what these people did. You had to form friendships. And as I said, it was a very humbling experience. I worked with them. To get them to accept you was not easy. because they saw you as potential one of these days you are going to be their overall boss, and you had come in as a young man. And in that sense, it was not dissimilar to the experience that young recruits get when they go into military academy.
Programs,
They go through that, and as they are trained by their regimental sergeant majors, and they make sure that they make your life hell. I went through that, so yes.
What was the most memorable experience from working underground?
The most memorable experience? I had several, but I guess that one of the one that really stands out was an incident that we had underground. At that time, when I joined the mine, safety considerations were not an issue. Safety was not fashionable. There was no culture of safety in the mines. If you died, you were just a statistic. You didn't even make it the headlines. And we were working underground, and the place collapsed. And a number of people died, and I noticed that somebody was trapped, and miners are like soldiers. When a colleague is in danger, they become totally oblivious to their own situation and rush on to go and help, which is what we did. And we went through a process. I was the most senior person in that environment. So we managed to rescue one of them, and it was quite tough, because as we were trying to rescue, the roof was still caving in. So it was quite risky, but we managed to get him out. And when we took him to the lift, he was bleeding. When we took him to the lift, he turned around to me and said, "Infante, thank you very much indeed." And of course, we all went back, but we all had been involved in this. But because I was the senior, he said that to me.
Thank you.
2 hours later, we heard he had died, and I was quite touched. Yeah.
It must have influenced your quest to ensure very high standards of safety in the mines.
That even as one admitted that the business itself was a very highly risky business, it did not justify the lack of safety culture. As I said, somebody died. It was part of the course. These things happen, and therefore you are a statistic. And so one had the opportunity to change that culture. Okay. We invested a lot in it, and I'm proud to say that now on almost every mine in the world, safety consciousness is now very prime, very, very top. In fact, in most board meetings, when I was even executive president of Ashanti Anglo Gold Ashanti, our board meeting, the first item was safety. And recently, as you know, I stepped down after 10 years on the board of Vodafone International. The first item is always safety. So yeah, the fact that safety culture consciousness has now become the norm is, for me, quite satisfying.
I need this part clarified. When you're growing up, you saw an obuasi and a gold mine that had institutionalized some form of segregation. You sought to change that culture.
Well, I don't think that I sought to change that culture. I wanted to test it. I wanted to push that culture to the limit, because for me it was totally unacceptable that a situation would arise where your future was determined largely on the basis of your color. And it was totally unacceptable to me. So when I had the opportunity to confront that, I confronted that. And I confronted it, certainly early stages when I joined Ashanti in when I got back from UK in 1973. The first one that I was put to the test was when I wanted to play golf.
Okay.
I was told that no Ghanaian played golf. And the company secretary at the time, or the mine secretary at the time, told me that it had become a subject of huge embarrassment to them, because the club was playing Akwatia, they were playing Takwa, they were playing Achimota, they were playing Kumasi, and all of them, the players were predominantly Ghanaians. And yet there was no Ghanaian playing golf in Obuasi. So I said I would play golf in Obuasi. So I showed up one day at the golf club, and the look I got clearly showed that I was unwelcome. I got myself a table, a chair, and ordered a bottle of beer. and asked for lessons from anybody, and everybody turned me down. And a young caddy offered to give me lessons, so he gave me 10 lessons. And after that, I felt I was sufficiently competent to play. And so I came back to the clubhouse and asked for partners who would join me, and everybody says, no, I'm sorry, we are busy, we can't let you. So fine. So golf there's a protocol in golf that if you start in the hole, nobody goes past you unless you wave them through. Okay, so I will start on the hole when I saw them come in, and I'll be walking slowly to play, and I saw them and I heard them, insulting me and saying all sorts. I did that 3 times, 3 days consecutively, and after that I was invited to join.
I see.
So I joined. I became the first Ghanaian to play golf, having broken the calabar, so to speak. And after that, I invited the local magistrate. I invited the head of the surgeon at the hospital to all join. But now I'm so fulfilled about that, because now you have predominantly all the players are almost Ghanaian. Yeah.
That's interesting. When it comes to salary remuneration and all of that, there was a disparity, huge margin between what the expatriates were taking and that of the locals. How did you bridge that?
Oh, I mean, traditionally, it was, the difference was about, the ratio of about 4-1. I mean, expatriates were getting about 4 times what the Ghanaians were getting. Plus also, the typical expatriate was, he had 3 months vacation every year, 12-month service. After 12 months, you had 3 months of vacation. And I felt it was unfair. First of all, if you are doing the same job, why would you, on what grounds would you get 4 times what I was getting? But when you are coming up the ladder, you don't have the authority to change that. Yes. But when I got to a certain level of influence, I sought to change that, and I did. But apart from that, on the vacation front, Ghanaians were entitled to 21 days in a year for vacation, and the typical expatriate was getting 3 calendar months. So I had a meeting with everybody, the key members of staff, the management, were largely expatriates anyway, and explained to them that I understood the rationale for the 3-month vacation, because it was established way before independence. Okay. Way before there was airline travel. Okay, and therefore, if you we were going by boat, and it took you 21 days to go and 21 days to come back, then half of your vacation was gone. So I could understand. But in an area on an age where you took 6 hours to get to your country, there was absolutely no reason why you should have 3 months and the Ghanaians should have 21 days. So I changed that. Everybody was to have 21 days. If you didn't like it, sorry, tough luck, you go.
Did they seriously with that? Were they angry? Did they oppose it?
I didn't, no, you can't oppose it, no. But I didn't notice that they were angry.
I see. But virtually, if you reduce my holiday period, I mean, there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, but you have to make an adjustment in their salary.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think it made so much sense that I didn't see that.
Why they would oppose it?
Yeah. But if they did oppose it, I didn't notice it.
Let's talk about 2 very critical periods during your stay. First, Ashanti Gold was becoming the star performer everywhere, beyond Ghana. You had started stretching forth into other states and also not only giving advice, but Ashanti Gold became the company to look out for. But the hedge crisis happened. And that was, if I could quote what's in Jonah and the remaking of the Ashanti, the most terrible 5 months in your life. What really happened?
Well, in 1999, the World Bank, at the annual World Bank meeting in Washington, restrictions on central banks owning gold were lifted. At the time, what we're talking about, the gold price was hovering around $250 an ounce. When the restriction was lifted, overnight, gold price shot to 350, going to 400. Now, first of all, what is a hedge? A hedge is a gold price protection or stabilization mechanism. It's a tool that you use in gold mining, in other things also, in other businesses also. Cocoa, we sell cocoa forward. Basically, that's what it is. You are selling your gold forward.
Not long ago, we even did with oil.
Okay, you sell it forward. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a prudent tool to use for the management of your cash flows. And we had gone into hedging precisely because we were building mines, as you said, all over Africa. And the banks who were lending us the money said that to give them assurance of cash flow stability, we should sell part of the production forward at an agreed price. Let me give you an example. At that time, the gold price was around 250. If we sold forward 5 years, we will get 300 to 350. So when we sold forward and we delivered in 5 years' time, we'll be selling the gold then at about that time, about 350. You understand? So if the gold price is today 200, 250, which is what it was, and we are sold forward to 350, and the gold price goes beyond 350, the person who has agreed to buy the gold from you at 350 says, what if the time comes, you've agreed to sell it to me at 350 5 years from now, and the time comes, the price is 400, and you refuse to sell it to us. So come and give us the margin. The margin is the difference between what you've agreed to sell it at and what the price is likely to be then, based on today's price. So when it's 400 and you've decided to sell it at 350, there's a margin of 50. So they said, okay, fine. Come and put down $50. Okay. If between now and when you deliver, the gold price stays below 350, there's no problem. If the time of delivery, gold price is 400, then we keep the balance. Yeah. So that's what happened. So at the time we were building mines, we had sold forward 40% of our production. And the gold price spiked from 250 and was heading to 400. So some of the deals we had done were margin free. We didn't have to put up any margins. But some of them, we had to put up margins. And at the time, we did not have the cash flow to support them. So when the first call came that they needed us to come and put down the difference, we had used our money to build the mines. So we were, in a sense, caught in a situation in which we could not honor payment of margins. And that is a hedge crisis. We're not the only ones. Quite a number of mines also had their hedge books underwater. That is to say, the prices that they had agreed to sell it was lower than the price then reigning at the time. But hedging, as I said, is, as you said, even cocoa we've sold oil forward. The biggest company which literally went under was Long-Term Capital in the US. Long-Term Capital was about $60 billion company. They had done hedging and derivatives, and they had a crisis similar to ours. On the board of Long-Term Capital were 2 Nobel Prize winners in mathematics and economics. So it wasn't a case that we didn't know what we were doing, which is what the Western press, the impression they wanted to give us, But it was because, we found ourselves in a peculiar circumstance where, having had this thing foisted on us by banks, when the crisis came, we didn't have the cash flow to do it. But this is normal business. You go to work out, you work with your head counterparties and the banks, and you try and resolve these things, which is essentially what we ended up doing.
But these were not normal times.
No, they were not normal times.
They're not normal times at all.
No.
I mean, two things. It took you almost 5 good months to resolve this.
Yes.
That's one abnormal part of it, isn't it?
Yes, first of all, yes, we went into a workout situation that is literally every day you were meeting the hedge counterparties. And what they were looking for were assurances. What was good for us, what stood in our stead, was that we had more reserves than we had committed to sell. So therefore, it is not a big deal in the overall scheme of things.
It wasn't supposed to be a big deal.
It was not supposed to be a big deal. But we had some complications which are pretty local and domestic. And that's what created
I want to go into that. 2 things. First, here in Ghana, the government was after Anglo-Gold Ashanti. It was after Ashanti at the time.
I wouldn't say the government was after Ashanti. in the situation that we found ourselves in, obviously we expected more constructive engagement from government. We expected government to be more helpful, not least because Ashanti was a major player here. Okay. It was a flagship company in Ghana. The Ghana government, or the country, had shares in it. The Ghana government was a regulator. Two prominent government ministers were on the board of Ashanti. The chairman was the Minister of Finance. Okay. So we expected a lot more help from government, yes.
What did they do against this quest to resolve a purely corporate issue?
I think that some of the interventions, even as one recognized that for all the reasons that I've given, they had a right to show interest in it, as a shareholder, as a regulator, and as well as a government. I think that their interventions were unhelpful. It prolonged the issue. For instance, in having had discussions, very constructive discussions with the hedge counterparties, you come back from the meetings, feeling pretty good that, you were getting to
some conclusions.
And then it is announced that the minister who is with you and the chief executive of the Ministers' Commission who is with you in those meetings has been fired by radio. So I mean,
is it Minister for
the Minister for Mines, the late Mr. Hineken, a fantastic gentleman, and the chief executive of the Ministers' Commission at the time, the founding chief executive, was also fired by radio. So they were not helpful because these are people. Of course, it will send a signal. Yes. Not instability. That because government has to give assurances also. Because what if the time comes and the share price, the gold price is 400, and you sold at 350, and gold. Let's face it.
That's get a difference.
And you have to and the government says we will not allow you to send the gold off at 350. What do you do? So they needed assurances from government that the normal business, would prevail.
It's been so many years now.
Yeah.
What was government's main reason for the withdrawal of these significant parties?
I don't use the word withdrawal. It never came in the first
place.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the reasons. I wouldn't like to speculate.
It wasn't clear to you?
It wasn't clear to me because it made a lot of sense to do. I mean, companies do rush to help. I mean, French companies, when they're going down, you expect, as happens, French government intervenes to help. United States, when the Chinese have wanted to take over a company, the American government, even in highly capitalized countries, have come to say, no, we want to save this flagship. So it happens.
Was government committed to helping Ashanti at the time, or looking out for it to go under?
I wouldn't say they wanted it to go under. I have no evidence of that, but what I can say is that the interventions were not helpful and not constructive.
Even the board chairman was removed.
Yes, in a very dramatic way.
How did that happen?
We were supposed to be having a board meeting to give a blessing to what we have achieved with the banks. The meeting was slated for 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Gold House. Every director had flown in, those who were coming from overseas. Everybody was there. We were all waiting, and then a government advisor walks in, gives us a letter, and the letter said, signed by our chairman, that he had resigned.
Was the chairman in the meeting?
That's the point. The chairman was not in the meeting. We were told later that the chairman had been encouraged to stay at the castle, and the letter had been signed by him and been sent to us. Most unusual. It's not a government organization. It's a public company. It's a company which is the first African company to be listed on New York Stock Exchange, listed on London Stock Exchange, listed on Australian Stock Exchange, listed on the Ghanaian Stock Exchange. So you expect that basic governance norms,
or the standards of corporate governance, would have prevailed.
Would be respected. So if for the chairman of a public company of that stature not to even come and say that, listen, I'm resigning for these reasons, but we are told that the advisor who had nothing to do with the chairman comes in with a letter which has been extracted from the chairman, was pretty unhelpful.
Sorry, this was a government advisor on the hedge process? Or
well, when the hedge crisis hit, the government appointed a local company to help them navigate through the challenges that the company was facing, yes.
And this company is Databank.
For now, yes, it is a matter of record.
Okay, so I want to be clear on this.
Databank teamed up with Carl Merchant Bank, yes.
Oh, Carl Merchant Bank.
And provided that
now,
to government.
The clarity I demand from this is that this was chairman of a board,
yes,
knowing to all parties that he was supposed to chair a meeting, but he couldn't show up because he had resigned. How was the board reconstituted?
Well, the board carried on the day, but as part of the resolution of this whole thing, to get ourselves assurance of support from the government for the deal which had been negotiated, we were told that the board had to change. 2 attempts were made. The first attempt is that some anonymous guys living on some island, Channel Island, wrote to us and said they were shareholders in the company. No, I don't think so. We don't know. They were that anonymous. And that they were calling for an extraordinary general meeting of the board, of the company. And the main item, and the only item, was the dismissal of all the board directors. Okay.
I see. So this was people who said they were shareholders.
Yes.
They have written that
they written to the company secretary.
Item agenda is required.
Yes. They were asking for an emergency
general meeting.
And the only item on the agenda was the
dissolution of the entire board.
Yeah, of the board, yes.
This was still at the thick of the crisis.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
How was this resolved?
Well, first of all, they wrote to the company secretary, and we were not bad, because under the company's code, then and even now, for a public company, you needed a minimum of 5% of the shareholders
to call a meeting.
To call an emergency general meeting. We asked for that evidence. We didn't have it. They didn't even 1%. In fact, they had no evidence of shareholding. So they took the matter to court.
I see.
Yeah, they took the matter to court. And the court, in the strangest judgment issued on a corporate matter of this nature, the court decided that it didn't matter what the act said. Even if a man had 1 share in the company, he could call an EGM anytime.
When the Company Act was clear on what was required,
yes, but mercifully, it's not part of the case law.
The court took a different view. Is this explained? Did they give any reason for it?
Mercifully, the judgment was vacated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was vacated.
Okay.
But yeah, it forced us then into some kind of a resolution, because the judgment says that it doesn't matter what the act says. If a man has even 1 share in a company, can you imagine? I mean, how frivolous it would be for a company to spend all their time every morning, every person.
It's very possible that they could hold emergency meetings every week,
every hour.
Yeah.
So we had to. That was the judgment. We had to work with the judgment. So we were told that the government advisors had recomposed the board.
So indeed, the board was recomposed.
Yes, the board was recomposed by the company, by the government advisors.
Was the government the majority shareholder at the time?
No. The government was, at that time, the government had no more than 17% of the company.
And yet they had the capacity to recompose the board.
I don't know about capacity, because even as a regulator, you couldn't compose the board of a public company. So they didn't have the capacity.
And yet it happened.
They had the power.
Okay, so it was the power rather than the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
These were torrid times. I mean, these are still times that you are seeking to resolve a problem. And locally, you have been thorough in court cases with resignations, with all of these. How did that affect the team on your side?
Of course, we all react to stress in different ways. It took a toll on all of us. I think that I'm told that certainly the health of 2 of our key members deteriorated as a result. Personally,
you are not affected?
I was affected to the extent that I thought, my God, we had put in so much effort. We had such a wonderful team of Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians. We had built up what I thought, or we all thought, was a fantastic company. And it was going down, not like because of a
Mismanagement
business,
or- yes.
business dispute, but the factors beyond our control which were pushing us under.
Were there times you woke up every morning, up in your bed, sitting down and saying, this week we will lose this company?
Oh, there were several times we've had a meeting, and then I'm told, leaving the meeting, that, 6 o'clock in the morning, we'll pull the plug. And, we had tried to talk sense to everybody, and the resolution had involved quite a lot of people, including the governor of the Bank of England, Lord George, and quite a few.
Far.
Yeah, that far. Yeah, it went that far. And but as I said, we were not unique. We were not the only ones in it. I mean, a number of companies to finance mines had hedge books, and the hedge books were underwater, and they were working it out without their government intervention, if you understand. Normal business, you have a dispute, you try and resolve it with your bankers, or in this case, hedge counterparties. But we had the additional complication of what I've described, yes. But in the end, it was resolved, and nobody lost money. Share price appreciated again, and the rest is history.
Throughout these crisis periods, did you communicate with the President of the Republic at the time?
Me personally?
Yes.
No, I didn't. No. But the matter, he was very active in it, in terms of interest, and there was the representative of the biggest shareholder, Lonro, and 2 other directors were invited here with the chairman then of Ashanti, who had taken up from our chairman, who had been forced to resign. And they held a meeting at the castle. And it was not very productive, not very constructive. There were deputy ministers who attended the meetings who had didn't have the portfolio for mines or whatever, but came to the meeting. One of them famously had this AK-47 on the table of the meeting, and yeah.
And this story we have heard before. Are you saying that it is true?
Yes.
That then Deputy Minister for Defense, not for mines, finance, or any related parties in this case, had an AK-47 with him, which he actually put on the table, the negotiation table, if you like.
Well, this is what was represented to us by the chairman of Lonro and the chief of Lonro and the chairman of Ashanti at the time. I was still in London, and they were so traumatized by the experience that they came in a private jet. They brought my family over, thinking that I was not safe, but I was safe.
And the facts remain that this was Dr. Tony Edu. He was the Deputy Minister of Defense at the time.
Shall we keep names out of it?
I get your point, but I mean, it is a stated fact. It's not unknown to people within the period to state the facts in this case.
I will leave that
I
for
know.
now.
I get your point.
Yeah.
Now,
I was intrigued that he was not part of the portfolio. He didn't have, Ministry of Defense were quite different from Ministry of Lands and or Finance.
yes,
Anyway.
but it shows how acrimonious the situation was at the time, wasn't it?
You could say that, yes.
Now, we'll take a break. After the break, we'll explore the relationship with the head of state at the time, much more so because of his recent commentary. We'll also be looking at the brighter days, which became the measure period. And indeed, you came under some fire during that period too. So we would explore that particular period and move it into a closing end after the break.
That's fine.
Welcome back. This conversation is with one of Ghana's greatest. He's transformed many and is known to be a business magnate. We're having a conversation about the ups and downs in perhaps the biggest of his achievements, having to do with the transformation of what was known to this state as our biggest business entity, the Ashanti Gold at the time. You're welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
We left off with resolving perhaps the biggest crisis during your period at Ashanti Gold. Within 5 months, it was all over, or there was still simmering politically induced issues that ought to be dealt with? Were they?
I don't understand what you mean.
I'm saying that within 5 months, the crisis was over.
Yeah, so we went back to the business of doing that.
But what was the relationship between you as leadership of Ashanti Gold and government at the time?
Oh, the government was, as a shareholder, government was happy because anytime provided the opportunity through the listing, anytime government needed money, they would sell their shares. Don't forget that at the time of the listing, 1994, Ghana had 55% of the company. Later on, I understand we have less than 1% or so there now. So we provided a market for the government to take money off the table. So I think the Ghana government was a certified shareholder. I don't know what you
Yes. Now, okay. The president at the time, he basically proposed you for a position at Anglo Gold. Did you try resigning during all of this crisis?
Now, first of all, the president, the government, the PNDC government.
Okay.
I was at Ashanti. I was underground manager, later became mine manager, later on became general manager. The government nominated me, as was their rights under the management agreement with London, nominated me for appointment by the company as a deputy managing director.
Oh, okay.
That's 1982. Then 1986, London, exercising their right to appointed me as chief executive officer.
Oh, I see.
Now, I was obviously hugely grateful to the government for nominating me to become the deputy managing director, and obviously the president would have had a lot to say about that, and so I was grateful. But I was given the opportunity, as were many people, to do different things, and sure.
But you delivered. To be fair, the claim was that you had led massive transformation at this end. Fast forward to the periods, and on the 40th anniversary of the June 4th, that's last year, what's your relationship with former President Rawlings?
Respectful one.
But you're not friends?
No.
You're not enemies either?
I would like to believe you are not.
Is there evidence suggests that you might not think so, but he thinks you are?
I don't know. As I said, I don't know, except that judging by what occasionally he's been known to have said about me in public, they're not constructive.
Now, it's because of that, I need to explore this point. The former President Rawlings, on the 40th anniversary of June 4th, did make a comment about you. He was clear in his mind when he said that, specifically, one Alhaji Yusuf reportedly forgave me for the demolition of his hotel because he believed I thought he co-owned it with Sam Jonah, and also that he was financing the opposition political party. First, you know Alhaji Yusuf?
Yes.
You co-owned a hotel with him?
No.
Okay. Now, he proceeded to say that, and to think that I am accused of ordering the demolition because I had a bone to pick with your Sam Jonah. Sam Jonah, by the way, is not unknown to have a treacherous and greedier appetite than your little hotel.
First of all, I seem to be a subject of interest whenever there's a celebration of June 4th, more in more recent times. I mean, I recall a couple of years ago, the celebration was at Elwak, and the president said in his speech that I had abused the power of attorney which had been given to me by the government, the Bank of Ghana. I didn't understand what was meant. I've never done any business with Bank of Ghana in my personal capacity. And to think that you're given a power of attorney of a bank, central bank, could only mean one thing, that you're going to print your own money. And I've never been involved in that. So I didn't know what he meant by that. But then, it was part of an important speech. The one that you made reference to, let me be kind. Let me say that because I have a difficult and challenging relationship with the English language, I'm struggling to understand what he meant by that. But if I'm to take out of the speech, out of this, what he said, the word treachery. Treachery connotes betrayal. It connotes deceitfulness. As I said, I may have been called all sorts of names, but this is the first time I'm being called a traitor. Okay. And if you look at my record, my conscience is very clear. My record of service to friends, relatives, business colleagues, not one, and I mean for the record, not one will say I've ever been treacherous. I hope that the former president would also chest out with clear conscience, say that his colleagues, his family, his friends, people who had served in the military with, his ministers, would say the same thing about him. My record is clear.
You're basically daring him.
I'm not daring him. What he's saying is that I'm saying that, first of all, I'm struggling to understand the language, what he meant. But if he meant that I'm treacherous as a person, then I'm saying in fairness, I think of the two, one is more qualified to talk about treachery than the other, because I've not been a treacherous.
You're saying that he's more qualified to talk about treachery than yourself.
I am saying that nobody has ever said I'm a traitor or I've been treacherous. I hope he will say the same thing. I'm saying that I'm putting my record on the table. And I'm saying I've never been treacherous. I've never been deceitful.
I get you.
Yeah.
So in comparing the records of the two, you are inferring that he cannot make a claim of not being treacherous.
I didn't say that. The inference is yours.
I get your point.
But what I'm saying to you is that I, hand to heart, I can say I've not stabbed any member of my family, any friend, any business colleague, any partner of mine in the back. I hope he can say the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
Let's talk about the measure.
Yeah.
This was a great time in the history of what they call Ashanti, becoming Ashanti Gold, Anglo Gold Ashanti. There were newspapers in this country that said, good move, a lot of money will come to the state and the company. On the other side, there were others who said, no way, we are giving up our birthright. And this Jonah is seeking to be swallowed again by a whale. Desist from doing so. Was it a difficult moment?
But Jonah survived how many days in the whale's belly? Ashanti survived.
That's true.
Okay. So if you come up with that knowledge, I thought I would throw that one in. But on a more serious note, you know, people romanticize about Ashanti. You know, there's a lot which is...
So it's dear to our heart. It's within our
obviously,
souls.
it's dear to our heart.
Yeah.
You know, that.
And we are selling our birthright.
Yes, whatever birthright is supposed to be in here. You know, if you're talking about our birthright, Atakwa Goldfields, okay, and our Goldfields produces more gold, the biggest producer of gold in the country, produces more gold than all the gold that Anglo Gold Ashanti produces in Ghana. Talking about our birthright. In the late 90s, in the early 90s, I was invited by the then Minister of Mines, Mr. Rena, invited me and asked that Ashanti could take over Takwa and Aboso. Okay. Takwa and Aboso had some fantastic mining engineers, Ghanaians, but clearly they were starved of capital because it was owned by government, and government did not have the capital to keep them going. So he asked us to take them over, and I was delighted. In fact, we were going to have thrown into the mix $3 million from the World Bank. So to take it over completely. We were excited, we were ecstatic because we saw the potential for surface mining. At that time, the technology for processing gold-bearing material, which was close to surface, had now become mainstream. So we were excited, and I came back to the office, and this is late 80s, I think. At that time, there was no fax, these, and we used to have a telex machine. So I sent a telex off to London, to Tiny Rowland's office, that we had this fantastic opportunity and had accepted, and we were going to go into getting the agreements together. And within minutes, I got a telex back. It says, who gave you the authority to go, and we are not interested in expanding beyond Obuasi.
Oh, I see.
So this was given to us on a silver platter. This was $3 million thrown in. We had told to shut up and not take it up, and with the tail between my legs, I had to go and say they declined the offer. Now that same mine produces far more than the whole of Anglo Gold Ashanti. So it's not just governments which behave badly. individuals also don't see beyond their noses when opportunities come, and also sometimes they mess up. So I just give you that as an example. But in terms of the merger itself, you know, Obuasi, I remember when President Kufuor came to office, the government, the ministers went to an off-campus strategy session at Kimpa, and I had the opportunity and the privilege to address them. And I pointed out at the time that Obuasi had been going since 1895. The average life of a mine is 10, 15 years. Okay. For a mine which has celebrated a century, I mean, this was unique. So I said, listen, if you look at the geology of Obuasi, all the gold that is pretty shallow, up to about a mile down, has been mined. But the access to the material that is very promising just stops. The lift taking you down stops at 1 mile down. But the material that bears gold goes below 1 mile down. So, but it requires significant capital to access that material. Ashanti found itself in a very unique situation. The main shareholders were Lonro and the Ghana government, as I explained. Unfortunately, as a result of an incident that happened with Lonro decided that they were no longer interested in gold. They were going to keep to their platinum. So they were sellers. They would not put any money into Ashanti again. The Ghana government had 17% shareholding. They did not have the money to put into Ashanti. Okay. And if they did, I would not have necessarily recommended it, given the competing demands for scarce Ghana government resources. Okay. So we found ourselves in a situation which is almost like a Konongo Kaya situation, dog in a manger. Nobody will put money in. Lonro won't, Ghana government won't, but they will not allow anybody else to put it in. So we were snookered. You could not move beyond that. You could not look for the money, because if you go to the market and say we want $1 billion to spend in Obuasi, they will say, well, how much are the shareholders putting up? And the two shareholders said, we are not prepared to put money up. How do you finance Obuasi? Yes. So for me, the case to President Kufuor's government for agreeing to the merger was very clear. If you wanted Obuasi to survive, then you would have to let Ashanti merge with somebody else with a deeper pocket, and would provide Lonro with the opportunity to exit. And the Ghana government with the opportunity to have a paper which they could always cash in if they wanted. So that was the reason for the merger. And, you know, history has borne us out, because, you know, Obuasi was closed for 3 years or so.
That's true.
Yeah, because after having put in more than 1.5 billion into Obuasi, we still needed to put $3 billion to access the gold below the 1 mile down, which is what we've been saying. Okay, so that justifies
the need for the merger.
The need for the merger. Now, as I said, clearly, people who hold the view that they hold did not understand the peculiar circumstances that Ashanti found itself in. But we weren't selling our birthright. I mean, first of all, the mines were still here. They will pay their royalties, they will pay their taxes, they will continue to employ the people that they were employing, they would reinvest in additional technology and all of that. So it was good. But let me just tell you how far Ashanti had come. In a merger between two parties, almost invariably, is the bigger party which takes over the leadership role of the company.
That's true.
Okay. So the smaller company is literally, to use your analogy, yes, swallowed by the whale. Anglo Gold Ashanti approached us. We agreed the terms of the merger, and the new company becomes Anglo Gold Ashanti. I, representing the smaller company, became the executive president of the larger company. Okay. My CFO, Venkat, who was CFO here, became deputy CFO, and within a year had been promoted CFO. Okay. The company secretary here became the company secretary for the group. General counsel, this is Mirine Bosio Phillips, became the group general counsel for the enlarged group. The chief auditor, internal auditor, became the chief auditor, internal auditor for the group. So I'm giving, and many more. I can give you many more. Okay, we had.
So this was contrary to established practice.
Because the bigger group that was coming had a measure of us and appreciated the quality of the people that they were taking. In fact, famously, I recall Bobby Gosse, my colleague, said to me that we came because we were interested in the leadership that Ashanti represented.
Wow.
Yes.
You've succeeded at everything.
Oh my God.
I
was, oh, what did you say? I've succeeded at everything?
Everything.
No, I haven't. My God, that's a monumental exaggeration.
At least that's what people believe. Have you failed at anything?
Oh, I've failed many times. I've failed more than I've succeeded.
Really?
Oh my God, yes. I have failed in business. I've failed in my personal life. I mean, I've had my pluses. I've had my negatives also. Otherwise, I'll be playing God, and I'm not.
It's interesting.
I've had more setbacks than I've had successes. Yes, but that's the norm. I mean, if you look on your, but the thing is, one, I'm not afraid to fail.
Okay.
Therefore, I will not shy away from attempting something because I'm afraid that I will fail. That is the surest way to the path of failure. Okay, and I don't give up. But it is not that you fail. As for failure, you will fail. You will fail. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have your setbacks. Mm-hmm. It is what you do when you fail. That's what shows the difference between you and I. I will never give up, and I don't expect you would. But if you give up, then you failed. But if you don't give up, then you've not failed, because you try it again, and something positive will come out of it. Everybody will have setbacks.
Okay.
I have many setbacks. I've told you, but I guess that the difference between the guy you're interviewing now and somebody else who has had the same setbacks is that I don't give up. Well, everything that can be thrown at me, that individual has been thrown at me. I broad shoulders. I take them.
Yet you survived.
Yes, I've survived. I've survived because I've survived. Yes, because it's in my nature not to give up. But I've survived also because I think that I learned some very important lessons of survival when I worked deep in the mines. When I was telling you that in those days, when you were going underground, your mother was crying because you may never come back. You may never come back. I mean, it was part of the course almost that something could happen to you, something nasty could happen to you. So you conquer the fear of death. You conquer all of those things.
At 70, you still wake up in the morning and go to the office.
Yes.
When are you going to retire?
I'm a creature of habit, and my father. I'll tell you, my father was a military man, and I was born in a military camp. And my father used to tell us, he was very regimental in the way he brought up his family. And he used to tell us that it is totally unproductive to be in bed after 5 o'clock in the morning. And I believe my father because he had 10 children with my mother. And if he thought it was unproductive to be in bed after, he knew what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. So from very early age, I cannot stay in bed after 5 o'clock in the morning. As I say, I'm a creature of habit. So 5 o'clock in the morning, to the annoyance of my wife, I get out, sneak out of the room, and I do my emails between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And then I go to the gym, which is in the house. And occasionally I'll swim after. And now I've added that to that a new passion, playing piano. So I'll go and do a bit of that. And then I go upstairs. I don't like breakfast. Breakfast dulls my senses. I can't think after that. And so I come to the office about 8:30, 8:45. And then I go home and I have a quick lunch. And then I go and play golf. Will I retire? Whatever that's supposed to mean. If it means that I'll be tending to the roses in the garden, forget it. I will not do that. Wow. No, I can't do that because, as I said,
is there a time that you're going to stay home and say that, no, I'm no longer actively involved in all of these. I'm not going to sit in the office. I'm going to stay at home. Maybe wake up in the morning, eat. Just deal with family. Let my grandchildren just stay with me.
Oh, my grandchildren... They will come and see me weekends and all of that. Then I go and see them sometimes after a game of golf and all. Mm-hmm. But if retirement, let me repeat, if retirement means tending to the roses in the garden, it's not for me. I think I have I have gotten the discipline of being up, getting up, and going to an office.
You are afraid of moving away from that life.
I'm not afraid.
You fear
the word was yours, but yeah, not sedentary, because in the office I'm sitting down, so it's not that. But no, it's just a discipline that I have had inculcated into me.
So you've not been able to tell me when you are going to finally retire?
Final retire will come when you check out.
Oh, I see.
That's a final retirement, isn't it?
I see. That's not some type of retirement that you are thinking of anytime
No,
soon.
that's it. Because when you turn 70, the Bible says most people, 70 is So when you turn 70, you are in the departure lounge, waiting to go. And fortunately, it's Ghana Airways, so they will delay. So, but
They will delay. Anyway, if you have no further comments, I need to thank you. And I appreciate your time for allowing us into your office today.
Thank you very much.
Except that if you have any further comments, you may want to
I don't have
add.
any further comments. This has been an interesting interview, and thank you very much indeed.
I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, folks, says I'm Jonah for you.